Verbal Class 3, Reading Comprehension. RC Overview. In the verbal section of the GMAT exam you can expect to see 2 to 4 passages of 200 to 400 words each. Each passage will be followed by 4 questions. Types of reading comprehension passages. There are 3 most common types of reading comprehension passages. 1 science passages, 2 social science passages, 3 business passages. Each type of passage calls for a slightly different optimum test-taking strategy. Science passages. These passages deal with topics including biology, chemistry, and medicine. Approach them by doing an initial speed reading skimming of the text. Understand how the passage is structured and analyze its outline. Science passages are very factual and straightforward. They will likely provide the easiest reading comprehension questions you will encounter on the GMAT exam. You are not likely to see any inference questions. Drawing on a science passage, you are much more likely to see several factual questions that can be answered directly from the passage. Social science passages. These passages deal with topics such as history, politics, and geography. They are the most enjoyable reading comprehension passages. You must read these passages slowly, in order to answer the many inference questions they are sure to present. Business passages. These passages involve very difficult structures and present questions that require you to infer information and even to determine the author's moods and opinions. They need to be read slowly and carefully. Frequently, business passages also include compound words that few people have ever heard before, and that even fewer people use in ordinary conversation. Don't feel bad when you run into such terms. They are not very difficult to decipher, if you break them down and examine each of their parts. Types of RC questions. Factual questions are the easiest ones to answer, but the most time-consuming. Be careful because they often contain curveballs. However, these curveballs are also relatively easy to recognize and overcome. 2 inference questions. These questions test your ability to draw conclusions from other information. May even ask you to make a judgment about the author's opinions, or to guess what further conclusions the author might draw. They are usually the most difficult questions for test takers. 3 main idea questions. These type of questions ask the test taker to identify the passage's overall theme, as opposed to supporting facts and arguments. How to eliminate choices. Answer choices that emphasize factual information can usually be eliminated. Answer choices that are too narrow or too broad also tend to be incorrect. Answer choices that contain keywords and concepts from the main idea presented by the passage are more likely to be correct. 4. Tone questions. You will often be asked to describe the passage's tone. The tone is much more likely to be positive or neutral than it is to be negative. For a science passage, the tone is most likely neutral. RC tips and strategies. Tip 1. Use your scrap paper. Passages can be rather long and present difficult sentence and paragraph structures. Take very brief notes on the main ideas of each paragraph and for remembering where to find factual information in the science passages. Tip 2. Read the first question before you read the passage. In the new CAT structure of the GMAT you will be able to see only one question at a time. Nonetheless, you will gain a slight advantage by reading the first question before you read the passage for the first time. This will give you a better idea of what you should be focusing on as you read, in order to answer that question. Tip 3. Identify the type of passage you are reading. Memorize the 3 common passages types that we outlined above, and remember that each one should be treated differently, in order to optimize your score on this section. Tip 4. When answering a fact question, read both the passage providing the data and several lines before it carefully. Tip 5. Don't jump to conclusions with fact questions using Roman numerals to identify answer choices. You will recognize this style of question as soon as you see it. A1 only, B2 only, C3 only, D1 and 2 only, E2 and 3 only. The catch is that, oftentimes, facts 1 and 2 will be presented very close to each other in the passage, but fact 3 will be buried much further in the text. Take the time to review and consider each fact on its own merits. Tip 6. Eliminate the "ooh" and "ah" answer choices. When consultants refer to "ooh" and "ah," they are talking about interesting factoids that spice up presentations without adding anything of real value to the analysis. An "ooh" and "ah" choice will refer to a fact in the passage, but just not to one that answers the question being asked. Tip 7. Practice, practice and practice. You can't expect to become a scratch golfer just by reading a few magazine articles and watching a few golf tournaments on TV. Likewise, you can't expect to become an expert at taking the GMAT just by reading some tips and advice. You also need to work through many practice questions. For more information, visit www.gmatcoaching.com.